I've investigated some of the world's most chilling unsolved cases, but nothing ever gripped me the way Jack the Ripper did. Before we start to dive in, please don't forget to subscribe and like this video. We spend long hours creating these stories, so even a small bit of support means the world to us. Thank you. Whitechapel, London, 1888. A district overflowing with poverty, narrow alleys, and darkness thick enough to swallow you whole. The kind of darkness that makes ordinary shadows feel alive. It began with Mary Ann Nichols, found on the morning of August 31st. Her life had been short, her struggles many. The police discovered that her death wasn't just another crime in a violent district. It was methodical, deliberate, and terrifyingly precise. At the time, Metropolitan Police were overwhelmed. Violence against women in Whitechapel was sadly not uncommon. Nichols' death seemed tragic but not extraordinary, until Annie Chapman was found days later in Hanbury Street. Her injuries suggested the killer knew exactly what he was doing. Someone careful, calculated. Locals whispered a name, Leather Apron. Newspapers ran with it, spreading panic. The myth of the Ripper had already begun forming, long before the first official letter would arrive. Walking the streets where these women once lived, you can almost feel the city holding its breath. Cobblestones worn down by years of footsteps. Narrow alleys perfect for disappearing into shadows. September 30th brought the night historians call the double event. Elizabeth Stride was found first, her throat cut but no further injuries. The killer likely interrupted. Less than an hour later, Catherine Eddowes was discovered in Mitre Square. Her injuries were more severe. The precision was unmistakable. And a clue remained. A piece of her apron beneath a wall with the cryptic message, "The Jews are the men that will not be blamed for nothing." Police erased the writing immediately to prevent unrest, and no photograph was taken. That choice remains one of the most debated in the history of the investigation. Was it destruction of evidence, or an unavoidable act of caution? Around this time, letters started arriving at the newspapers. The most famous, known as the "Dear Boss" letter, taunted the police with red ink and bold handwriting, signed, for the first time, Jack the Ripper. Some say it was a journalist's hoax. Others point out details that weren't public at the time, suggesting the writer had insider knowledge. Whitechapel was already a district where life was fragile, but the Ripper amplified that fear, turning it into something the entire city could feel. Walking those streets today, it's impossible not to imagine what it was like back then. Every shadow a potential threat. Every stranger a possible suspect. And in the spaces between the gaslights, you can almost sense a presence. Someone who vanished into darkness and left only fear behind. The murders had begun, and the city had no idea how long the terror would last, or how close the killer truly was. By October 1888, Whitechapel was a city on edge. Gaslights flickered against the fog, and every alley felt alive with the possibility of danger. People whispered that the killer could be anyone. A neighbour, a stranger, someone who blended in perfectly with the everyday crowd. Police were stretched to their limits. Scotland Yard tried everything. Patrols, plainclothes officers, even interviewing hundreds of local men. But the Ripper always seemed one step ahead. He left no footprints, no traceable evidence, only fear that spread like wildfire. Then came the letters. Hundreds were sent to newspapers, each one taunting authorities, each claiming to be from the infamous Jack the Ripper. The most notorious, the From Hell letter, was received by George Lusk, head of the Whitechapel Vigilance Committee. Inside was half a human kidney, preserved in spirits. Scientists later confirmed it likely belonged to a middle-aged woman with a kidney disease, matching Catherine Eddowes' medical records. Modern investigators still debate the authenticity. Was it truly from the killer, or a hoax meant to terrify? Either way, it added a chilling new layer to a city already gripped by terror. And the murders continued. Mary Jane Kelly, the last of the canonical victims, was discovered indoors on November 9th. The scene was horrific enough that even veteran detectives recoiled. Kelly had no chance for escape. Unlike the others, the killer had complete privacy. It was calculated, brutal, and it confirmed the Ripper's escalating confidence. The killer vanished after Kelly, almost as if he knew the city would never forgive the silence that followed. No thinking, no sightings, just a lingering presence that would haunt the streets forever. Over the years, countless suspects were investigated. Aaron Kosminski, a Polish immigrant and barber, spent his final years in an asylum. DNA testing on a shawl, allegedly linked to Eddowes, suggested he might have been the killer, though questions remain about the evidence's chain of custody. Francis Tumblety, an American quack doctor, was questioned in London and fled to the United States, reportedly obsessed with women's anatomy. Walter Sickert, the painter, was named in modern theories because of his dark obsession with violent themes, though historians generally dismiss this as speculative. One thing most modern investigators agree on: the killer likely lived locally, close to the centre of the murders. He may not have been a doctor, an aristocrat, or a stranger. He could have been someone so ordinary that nobody noticed him walking these streets, day after day, blending into the misery that surrounded him. The Ripper changed the way people thought about crime. He was the first to turn a series of murders into a media spectacle. He was the first whose letters, real or fake, shaped the investigation and terrified an entire city. And yet, despite modern technology and countless theories, the true identity of Jack the Ripper remains unknown. I stand in present-day Whitechapel, case files in hand, photographs yellowed and brittle. The streets are quieter now, but if you look closely, in the shadows of the alleyways, under the flicker of modern streetlights, you can almost feel him. The fear, the calculation, the vanishing, it's all still there. Because Jack the Ripper wasn't just a man who killed, he was a phantom of opportunity, a predator who moved within the cracks of society, and a legend born from terror itself. The most chilling truth? He may have been so ordinary, so unremarkable, that everyone who walked past him on those foggy streets never realized. They were brushing shoulders with history's most infamous, unknown killer. Do you think Jack the Ripper was one man, acting alone in the shadows of Whitechapel? Or do you think the truth is darker? That maybe the police never caught him because they weren't meant to? What if I told you there are case files, sealed for more than a century, that suggest the Ripper might not have been a lone killer at all, but someone protected, hidden, and quietly erased from the official story? So I want you to think about this. Who was Jack the Ripper? A single man? A group? A myth? Or something the City of London still isn't ready to face? So, after everything I uncovered, the sealed files, the inconsistencies, the evidence that simply shouldn't exist, I'm left with one unsettling truth. Jack the Ripper isn't just a name in a history book. He's a shadow, one that still stretches across London more than a century later. Tell me what you think happened in Whitechapel. Tell me what theory makes the most sense to you. Maybe you've heard something I haven't. Maybe you've walked those same narrow London streets and felt that same cold pull of history. And if you've ever felt like certain parts of this story don't add up, you're not alone. Every time I revisit the case, I find one more detail that changes everything. One more document missing. One more contradiction. one more loose thread waiting to be pulled. And the deeper I go, the more I'm convinced. The Ripper story isn't finished. Not yet. So scroll down, share your theory in the comments. Let's piece this puzzle together. Because the truth might be hidden, but it's not gone. And as always, thank you for watching, for supporting, and for being a part of this investigation with me. Stay curious and stay safe out there, because some shadows never really fade.